I guess my biggest things was when I was younger, I was sexually abused by a family friend. I wasn't like, for me, I wasn't angry with the situation necessarily. I was angry at the it being taken away from me.
I took on the pressure of keeping the secret. Like I took on the responsibility, like I was watching out to make sure like no one was coming upstairs. Like, I took on that because I didn't want anyone to find out.
Like I remember the day my mum found out and the guy knocked on the door and she was screaming and I was crying for him, and I was so
Really?
hard. It was so hard that he was taken away from me, kind of realized that I'm gay and stuff like that. It was such a confusing thing to well, maybe I did ask for it, or maybe it was really confusing.
The acceptance that you was just a child and your brain wasn't developed enough, and they took advantage of you. And I think even if you enjoyed it, even if the abuse felt good and all these things, and you didn't make an attempt to stop it, it doesn't matter, because they took advantage of your lack of understanding.
I remember one day we was all kind of out. There was just so many of us on this council estate all hanging around, and it was cool. But then I remember just being in the bush, like in an industrial kind of place, and him kind of doing raping me. But again, we're being so forgiving and accepting. But
Yeah.
I just imagine he had this wife and kids, and he's being pulled away from it, and it's just like, if he just made that one mistake, then that shouldn't cost him his life. But then the policewoman was like, no, if he's done it once, he would have done it again.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Edge of the Bed podcast with me, Ryan Gadsby, the podcast where we talk all things child sexual abuse, child physical abuse, emotional abuse, and all those difficult conversations that I believe we need to be having. We have yet another amazing, brave survivor joining us on the podcast today. He's a male survivor too. I'm looking to get a range of different people coming on. We've had a lot of male survivors because that, it's the people that I relate to the most, and also I see that there's not a lot of male survivors out there speaking, but we are going to get a mixture, all different ages, all different people, because I think it's important that everyone watching has someone they can relate to and connect with. So yeah, that's the idea. I'm thinking of changing the structure up a little bit, having discussion episodes as well as these story episodes, so we can cover loads of different topics and also learn from so many different survivors' stories. I'm welcoming Arjuna onto the podcast today. As I said, he's a male survivor of child sexual abuse, and I am just so excited to learn from his story and be inspired by him. So yeah, sit back, get comfy, and enjoy today's episode. So Arjuna, welcome to the Edge of the Bed podcast. It's amazing to have you on here. You are the third male guest, which is amazing. I love to hear males speaking out about their experiences of child abuse. It's what we need to hear more of. So yeah, thank you for your voice, and yeah, welcome on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I'm going to start off the podcast with the question that I ask all my guests, and it is, if you was a teddy bear, and I'm talking about the teddy bears, right, that have the little button in the chest, and you press it, and they usually have like 3 phrases, right? And so if you was a teddy bear and you could only say 3 phrases, what would them 3 phrases be?
What to people having me as a teddy bear? I guess maybe like you are enough, protect your peace, and just let go.
Okay, yeah, maybe. They're good ones. Yeah, protect your peace. That's a interesting one. Why that one in particular?
I think it's just something I'm really working on with myself at the moment, like really getting wound up about things and what's going on in the world and what's going on in like my life and stuff. And it's like, if it's disturbing my peace, I need to remove that from my life. Nothing is worth your peace. So yeah, that's kind of like just a mantra I'm kind of repeating to myself now. Something I know it's been in a supermarket or something. It's just like, protect your peace, protect your peace, protect your peace. So.
Yeah, it is so important. Like if you're surrounded by sort of, maybe if it's negative people or, negative habits or anything like that, it can really sort of drag you down and drag everything about your life down as well. If you're like hanging around with the wrong people, it can affect your career, it can affect your family life and stuff like that. So yeah, it is a
Sure.
really good one, that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
So I'm
you.
gonna, sorry, I'm gonna go straight into your story if you don't mind, and if you'd like to just introduce yourself and give us sort of a little bit about yourself at current time, and then we'll get into sort of your past later on.
So yeah, cool. So my name's Arjuna. It's my chosen name, my spiritual name I took on 2 years ago when I was in India. So yeah, that's when my name changed. At the moment, I'm living in Panama in Central America, in Panama City. But I'm from the UK previously. I just literally got my residency here, which is really cool. So it's my and then about 18 months before I'd got my residency in Spain. So I'm kind of just collecting residencies and traveling the world. No, I was kind of traveling the world, but just having a bit of an adventure. So I left the UK maybe I think 3 years ago. Might make it
Yeah.
like 2.5 years ago. So I gave
Wow.
up work and yeah, I had enough of kind of just traveling to work, commuting to London, struggling with depression, I guess it was, drinking, some really so yeah, kind of broke the pattern, broke the narrative and then started to travel. So I have a marketing business, I also have some e-commerce businesses, and I'm a yoga and mindfulness teacher. So yeah, something I want to be doing more of, to be honest. So yeah, I'm excited for that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've kind of been here for 6 months now, so I think it's been really unsettling.
Yeah.
Getting a residency, it's really tough. Not in your own country, not in your own language. But it's an adventure, and it's something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm awful. Like I'm really well, I'm really bad at paperwork. I'm really dyslexic. I get really anxious, and then I'm just throwing myself in and doing this. Just a glutton for punishment. Is that the word? So yeah, but no,
Yeah.
it's cool though. It's an
Wow.
adventure,
So
exciting.
yeah, moving away, like that's the dream for me, like moving to a different country. What was that like? Because it's quite rare here, isn't it? Like the Commonwealth in Yorkshire, anyway, where I'm from. I can only speak from here. I live in
Uh-huh.
quite a small town, ex-mining town. Like it's very enclosed, and it's very, very rare for people to like move away. Like people stick to the ways and either join a family business or do just a 9 to 5 job. So what was that like taking the step to like move away and yeah, just take that leap?
It's I guess it's quite like tough, isn't it? Because I guess we always want what we haven't got, and I go back to a seaside town that I went to school in, like just outside of Brighton, and sometimes I get a bit envious. All my friends are still some school friends are there. They got their kids. They got they're married. They got their job for life, and it's like, oh, man, I wish I could live that life, but I'm just not wired that way.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about living in a little Yorkshire, mining village, I might, watch, just imagine like, these TV programs. You're like, man, that sounds amazing. Like getting to the post office or down the pub, and and like, I'd love that. I'd love to feel that security and safety, and then and belonging. But I guess I never really felt like I belonged, anywhere. And I guess I'm a nomad and a traveler and all this kind of stuff. So when I left, it was terrifying. Like it was, I felt like I've been ripped away from my support network, my
Mm.
friends. I've even now to today, I'm like, what am I doing? I could give all this up and just go home and,
Wow.
have my
Yeah.
mum cooking for me. And it's not, I think, as we like call ourselves digital nomads. And I've done some interviews around that as well. And it's like, it's simple. It's quite simple to do. You can set yourself up a business, and it sounds like it's not easy, but it is quite simple to set up a business, that can fund you. It's not that as expensive people think.
Yeah.
You can find work on the go. But yeah, it is sometimes it's a little bit lonely. But also I think what I realized last year is I was kind of doing it a bit wrong. When I got to India, I was walking around with my heart kind of, shielded and like
Mm.
suspicious of people. And yeah, I was not going to get anywhere doing that. I needed to open my heart, like let people in, trust people, and realizing that these are friends for life, although you don't know them, you haven't known them since school. Like I've got so many beautiful friends now across the world that I've met traveling, because we've all got a similar mindset,
Yeah. Wow, that
like we've
must be
all,
amazing. Must be amazing to have like all those friends across loads of different cultures. And I think the thing for me is I want to go out and just see what life's like everywhere else. Yeah, it just interests me.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, it is beautiful. Like I think, yeah, you don't really know until you're there. And I think the biggest thing, without putting like a down, spiral on it, is that I think I thought I'd be living this backpackers lifestyle and running around, like the movies or whatever, or what you see on Instagram and these like wanderlust people. And it's like, no, you're still kind of stuck with yourself at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you still, your clothes smell and wet when you're backpacking, and it's not as glamorous as you think. But once you can start to adjust, it takes adjustment like anything in life. And then it's like, wow, this is a bloody adventure. Like, I'm so fortunate to be living this, and it's
Yeah.
letting go of conditioning and freedom. We're not meant to live this lifestyle. People are meant to stay in their villages and that kind of stuff. And then
Hmm.
when you see beyond that, and kind of the world's limitless then, but then also that is a bit overwhelming, because it's like, if you
Yeah.
can do
Yeah.
anything, what do you do? It's, you've got so many options.
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, even when I like go down to London, I'm like taken back by how big everything is and how many people there are
uh,
and the culture change and everything like that. So, like, yeah, it's just interesting, isn't it?
I think
But
be like, I think it's kind of like, once you get to these places, they're kind of not insular, but they're kind of, compartments. So you think like going to India, like New Delhi's the most crazy place you've ever been. But I got a taxi to Rishikesh, which is just a beautiful little village,
mm,
and it's like there's these little pockets of people around, and even in big cities that you just, that will be like you and will be curious and would have making this first step as well. So you should do
yeah,
it.
yeah, definitely. That's the plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to just dive back a little bit, and talk about like obviously the edge of the bed, the podcast is all about sort of survivors of child sexual abuse, child physical abuse, emotional abuse, trafficking. And so we have you as a guest on today because you have a story behind
Mm.
within that. So if we could go back to yeah, where your story sort of started.
Yeah, so I was born. I was born. My mum was very unwell when I was born, so I was taken into foster care, for a while. So yeah, I was kind of brought up in that kind of care system, but I was really fortunate, that it took me a long time to get here, but I was really fortunate. My mum was always so loving and would fight to get us back, and she always smiling, laughing. She's so
Yeah.
strong. She was just, had unfortunate circumstances, and was, had all of her traumas and things as well. But I guess my biggest things was when I was younger. I was sexually abused, by a family friend, or my mum was kind of running like a single parents group, and
Hmm.
this man kind of infiltrated as a sports coach. And yes, that was that happened. I think it was about 7. I forget, go
Yeah.
blank. um and then so that happened. We can talk about that. And then later on, I was raped, as well, which was, yeah, by a kind of older person on our where we was living,
Mhm.
which was difficult. I mean, I think for me it's important to talk about, as well, because I I wasn't like, for me, I wasn't angry with the situation necessarily. I was angry at the it being taken away from me,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
I can completely relate to that. Like in a bit of a different way. Like for me, it was um I took on the pressure of keeping the secret. Like I took on the responsibility, like I was watching out to make sure like no one was coming upstairs. Like I
Wow.
took on that because I didn't want anyone to find out. And when I was younger, it was because I thought that what was happening was special. You know what I mean? I thought it was special, something
Mm,
special for me. And when I got older, I tried to keep it a secret because the shame and stuff came in, and stuff like that. So yeah, obviously it's a little bit of a different way. So are we talking about The abuse that happened when you was 7. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was no, I can only talk about my side of the story, but yeah, obviously I'd been in like foster care for some times as well, and so to have this person that was giving me so much love and attention, and it was just for me because I've got older siblings, and um yeah, being in care homes as other kids and stuff, care families as other kids and stuff. So yeah, to be the youngest as well, and I'm like, this this person's just for me. They kind of spoiling me, giving
Mm.
money, like giving me love and attention that my dad never gave me. No one necessarily gave me to that. Well, definitely not to that degree, but to feel this male figure as well.
Yeah.
And I didn't, obviously, like, you're a child, I'm a child. I didn't see anything wrong in that. And like you said, it was like it was yeah, like I remember the day my mum found out, and the guy knocked on the door and she was screaming and I was crying for him, and I was so
Really.
hard. It was so hard that he was taken away from me, and it was just weird. Like it's not weird. It's perfectly valid as a kid to to have those feelings. But I guess the biggest trauma for me was then to go through the process after of the court case, and
Mm.
the interviewing and the confusion as a child in those kind of formative years to be asked some of the questions. I mean, I know they have to maybe
Yeah.
to get the evidence, but very much like, did you enjoy it? What did you do? Like, and it's
Yeah.
like that's confusing to be
Mm.
asked.
Yeah, it
And
is.
still
Yeah,
in
yeah.
I
And
don't
so,
know what the answer is, but to be in
mm,
adult life, to actually be asking yourself those questions as well, and to be later to be and kind of realize that I'm gay and stuff like that. It was such a confusing thing to be like, well, maybe I did ask for it, or
mm,
maybe it was really confusing.
yeah. And when you were in that sort of mind frame of, when you was upset that people had found out and everything like that, how long was it until after that that you realized, what he was doing was wrong and he was taking advantage of you? Like, how long did it take for that sort of realization to come to you?
I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I didn't feel it because I was so void, and I guess do I really? I think I spent a lot of time hating myself and sabotaging, seeing like through my kind of teenage 20s, like drinking, drugs, self abuse, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Maybe I always did kind of blame myself. Um, I don't know. Then I guess I've done a lot of work more recently on the kind of forgiveness side, showing compassion for him. Not well, I guess yeah, for him, but
Yeah.
that's what. Yeah, I don't think there was ever a point that I realized, because I'm just going. I was just going on what I was being told, and what that it was wrong, and I feel that, I don't.
Yeah.
Um,
And when it
but
got
now, like,
to the police asking you those questions, did you feel as though, so I'm guessing, did your mum then go to the police and tell them, and it
yeah,
was around that time, yeah. So
investigate.
yeah, when they was asking, questions and that, did you feel like you had to sort of hold back to protect him, or was it like, oh, it's come out now, I've got to tell him everything? What was that like?
Yeah, we were. I mean, I remember we went through the questioning process, and it's quite in a room, and there was cameras pointing at you, and there's someone kind of talking to you, and yeah, like I guess I did want to. That's a real valid point. I guess I've kind of always done that since, is trying to defend people or hold something back rather than them having the full um what do you call it? I don't know, the full reciprocation. I don't know, for what
Yeah,
they've done.
yeah.
Getting the punishment for what they've done.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah,
And did he get
yeah,
charged with anything, or?
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, but yeah, no, we got compensation. Which was
Okay.
all
Yeah.
also very uh confusing as well, to be a kid and
Mm.
this has happened, but then you got a payout at the end of it. It's like, what is that? What
Yeah, it
messages?
isn't.
As it's just weird, as an adult now, looking back at me, as a child and still unpicking this, I kind of said to you about healing, like it's not linear, you know. Some days something comes up or something triggers, or you see a father with a son, or you see, you know, something, and you're just like, gosh, like these things trigger and they're so
Yeah.
in you know, inside us.
Mm.
So yeah, always healing and reflect on that kind of stuff. But yeah, to be a kid and to have love, or to have what you think is love, to have it taken away, you know, to be really angry at my like my family for it, and then, you know, to then be kind of get some money at the end of it. It's like, oh, what
Yeah.
have I just gone through? You know, what is this?
It's a really odd thing, the compensation side. I didn't come out until I was 16. I didn't speak out until I was 16. And then I think I only got the compensation like last year. And I was
Mm,
like, what do I do with this money? Like, it feels like if, you know, if I spend it on myself, it just feels weird, doesn't it? It's like, feels like it's not
yeah,
yours. And in a way you feel like you don't deserve it. I don't know if that's like, you know what I mean? It feels like, what, it was just that. And I guess it's not having empathy for yourself. And I discussed this in the last podcast I did, and it's one of the things that a lot of survivors struggle with. It's just having that empathy on your own story.
yeah.
Then when he was charged and everything like that, what was life like after all of that? Obviously you've been through this sort of traumatic experience, and then life just goes on, right? It's so sort of
Yeah,
what happened after that?
I guess I've got some, you know, thinking now, probably I've got some blocks of what actually happened after, like, time wise. But I know that then as a kid, I was very sexualized. You know, I'd kind of known what those feelings were, and um, so yeah, I always, you know, it's quite not embarrassing, but not even a concern. Like when you hear people talking about losing their virginity and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and you know, it's like, God, like I've never remember that wasn't actually like, you know, penetrative, if you have to say. No, but to then realize I was so sexualized, like at such a young
Yeah.
age, and I never saw anything wrong with that. And you know, like maybe I had this, well, definitely had this innocence, this thing taken away from me, you know, and to deal with, always have this shame then around. I was so lucky in some ways to have the support that I did have going through it. You know, my mum spotted it. She, despite what she was going through herself, she, you know, we was in therapy quite a lot. Um, it was always openly talked about. You know, we
Mm.
was never kind of. Well, I got this huge shame of, you know, kind of exploring my own body and stuff then, or like,
Yeah.
is it bad to do that? And nobody can kind of teach you that. It's just, you know, one of those horrible crap things we have to carry as abuse survivors. You know, that someone's
Mhm.
inflicted on us, is
Yeah.
that we have so much confusion. And yeah, so that's one thing. Like the sexualization was
Mhm.
crazy. You know, it was, I never remember a time of not kind of being, you know, exploring something or
Yeah.
being sexually active then after that,
Mm.
or you know, or just it being quite a common thing. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was,
And then getting into like teenage years and stuff, obviously everything changes then, doesn't it? Like when you get to sort of 14, 15, 16, did you carry like the sort of shame and things like that, and self-destructive behavior that we see quite commonly in survivors, or what sort of
yeah.
happened in them teenage years?
So I guess when the kind of rape happened after, you know, that was really coming into my teenage years, and that again was
Yeah.
so confusing because it was quite it's just that thing, isn't it? And it's like, imagine the way I was thinking about it, imagine telling that to a child is just so wrong. But it's like, you know, oh, I knew what was happening, you know, because it kind of they always say this in the question, like, did you enjoy it? And it's like, well,
Mm.
yeah, I did, like, but
Yeah.
you know, understanding that just because you enjoyed it doesn't make it right, or you
Yeah.
was, you know, innocent in that part, and what someone did to you was completely wrong. Yeah, that was
Mhm.
so hard to kind of have that compassion for myself,
Yeah,
you
of
know.
course. Like, I think the thing that is hard to understand, or for survivors to get around, is the acceptance that you was just a child, and your brain wasn't developed enough, and they took advantage of you. And I think even if you enjoyed it, even if the abuse felt good and all these things, and you didn't make an attempt to stop it, it doesn't matter, because they took advantage of your lack of
Hmm.
understanding.
It's true. Like just reflect on that. Like you're saying with, can't remember what you said now. Oh,
Yeah,
hide, keeping the secret and things like that.
yeah,
Allowing, kind of taking that on my shoulders and being like, well, I enjoyed it. They wasn't wrong. Like they were
yeah.
totally wrong what they did, and that isn't for me well, it's for me to forgive them, but isn't for me to excuse them.
Yeah, like
There's.
I'll be fully open, and I'll say my abuse never hurt me. I never
Mm,
asked him to stop. I never felt uncomfortable. There was points I was a bit like, what's going off, but I was never uncomfortable, you know.
yeah.
And a lot of the times, because he was in a bad mood if it didn't happen, so I would push for it to happen. I'd say, "Oh, I want
Yeah.
to get in the shower earlier," or I want to go to bed earlier," and give him the space that I know that he would abuse me in, because and I've never openly spoke about that before, but it's something, that hearing your story, I think it's important that young guys hear, because it's okay.
Mm,
It's all right. You don't have to be ashamed of that. I pushed for
no.
it to happen sometimes, and I was a child, and I didn't have that understanding.
Yeah, and that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that is the thing. You're like you're saying, in my teenage years, that I'd be so, not desperate, but just so wanting to have these sexual connections all the time with other
Yeah.
people, and it's like I'd be so desperate, desperate in a way, or like orchestrate these situations, and just constant rejection, or be a secret to people. And I guess it is kind of like, that's the position we're put in as kids, to try and
Mm.
orchestrate these situations so we can receive that, what we think is love, which is
Yeah.
abuse. And we're not wrong. What they're doing is wrong. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Completely. Yeah. And so when the rape happened, if you don't mind speaking about that, so you said it was like early teenage years, was that, or late on teenage
Yeah.
years? Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
think
so what
about
was the
11.
yeah, and what was the situation of that, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So there was a guy, like, on our estate where we was living and stuff. And I remember things happening with him and his brother, like, quite obviously in front of me. And I kind of always wanted to be around it. Again, it's that kind of thing of, it happened, of, yeah, just being sexualized and
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. And then I remember one day we was all kind of out. There was just so many of us on this council estate all hanging around, and it was cool. But then I remember just being in the bush, like in an industrial kind of place, and him kind of, yeah, doing,
yeah,
raping me. But again, it's that situation of, this fight, flight, or freeze. We all think if you're being raped, you're going to scream and
yeah,
stop. And that there was people so close, and it was forceful. I was a kid, he was older, and it was painful. And I just,
mm,
like, it was just that situation. I can still remember now, like, after, it was kind of like this. Oh, like, it was exciting, but also like I was in a lot of pain,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I wanted to tell somebody and to try and remember. I remember going to this girl's house and telling her and her mom, and they would, I contacted them since a couple of years ago. Just something happened along though, with this kind of coming back up. Like, nobody, like, they don't remember anything, or
really,
um yeah. I mean, it was quite, I guess it was kind of quite a, not a dangerous family, but quite a tough family. Like, it was quite a rough kind of council estate. And I think people would have spoke up, and we moved quite quickly after, out of the area.
yeah.
So
And did you not tell your family or anyone, or did they find out from the other family? How did they end up? Yeah,
when we
did you end up
moved,
speaking?
yeah, when we moved, my mum, was kind of like, what happened? Like, I just think I wasn't right. I can't really remember, but I remember telling her at the time, and she was with her boyfriend at the time, went to kind of talk it out and with his dad, and it was just all, they just ignored it and stuff. So I remember mum reported it to the police and stuff, and just nothing happened. Which is kind of tough, like to go through that again, or something similar again, and go through that court process, or it didn't even get to court, I don't think, and then just be like, nothing happened. It didn't happen. That's what I'm not lying. It happened. And I went back. It was actually just before I left the UK, because I was in quite an abusive relationship, and I just was getting ready for work one day, and just for some reason something hit me, and it was this, from the abuse. I kind of put myself in a lot of situations when I was younger, like I said, to be having sex with people or be rejected by them, and then my relationships became like this, very abusive. And I've always, there was times like I was really sick, like in like my early 20s, I couldn't connect with anybody. I was so shut down. I was in very abusive relationships, but just having sex with so many people just to try and find that connection, because that's all I knew. And I was getting ready for work one day, and I remember this just hitting me, and I was like, now I know why I put myself in this situation with guys, to let them choose me or to try and sexually please them, all this kind of stuff. So I remember speaking to my mum about it, and I went to the police station and spoke to them about it again, just to see if anything could come up. But no, again, we're being so forgiving and accepting, but I just imagine he had this wife and kids, and he's being pulled away from it, and it's just like, if he just made that one mistake, then that shouldn't cost him his life. But then the policewoman was like, no, if he's done it once, he would have done it again, and you witnessed him doing it to his brother, so it would have happened again. But then I left.
Yeah, most survivors that I speak to are very like empathetic towards, well, most, obviously I know not all are like this, carry a lot of hatred and things like that, but a lot of the ones that I've spoke to, speak of that, a lot of empathy for their abuser, and I had that as well. And it is quite interesting that after everything, and even when we do gain that understanding of what has happened, we're still kind of like tiptoe around it. Do you know what I mean? Like I even down to, because my abuser died last year, and even down, and it was like, was it a suicide? Was it not? There was a whole investigation, and I felt really guilty if it was suicide, and that was a huge thing for me, like trying to like process that, because I'd been in a like near suicide situation, and I'm always preaching about how you should speak about what you're going through and things, and it's like, am I a fraud, if I'm like saying all this, but then I've caused this guy to kill himself, when really, it was him, it was his actions and everything. So yeah, it's so not odd, but yeah, it's just interesting that we have so much empathy.
It really is. And I think, I've been through, so like I've never done. I remember someone saying to me, and it always stuck in my mind, is the abuser becomes the abusee. No, the abused becomes the abuser. And I was like, God, so I'd like, I've got so many nieces and nephews. I would always be scared of like looking at them. I'd be scared of being around kids. And I'd be like, maybe what if I do? What if, it just takes that one thing to be like, maybe I am an abuse. Like, and that stuck with me, that burnt into my mind until I got into like my 20s, and I was going through drugs, and as I'm antidepressants my whole of my 20s. And like, you said, I had suicide attempts in hospital, and I just thought, oh yeah, I did become the abuser because I'm abusing myself.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is we don't realize that actually we are abusing ourselves.
So hurt people, like the famous saying, hurt people, and or even if you're not doing it to other people, you're doing it to yourself. But usually you are, without realizing, doing it to other people. Like I've never sort of been abusive or anything like that, but when I got out of abuse, and I was quite selfish, like I would sit in all day, and I'd left college, and I left my job and everything like that, and I'd just sit in, and I sort of dragged my girlfriend down with me as well. I was like saying, you know, oh, just stay with me all day, because I didn't want to be alone, because I was scared of myself at that point. And although I wasn't like physically hurting anyone, and I wasn't meaning to be, you know, emotionally abusive or anything like that, it was kind of like I was pulling her back from education, from a future, you know what I
Mm.
mean? And yeah, it can come in many different ways, and like you said, to yourself as well.
Yeah,
So
it's really. I think I spent a lot of time around kind of the compassion side. Is, you know, I think the last person I have is compassion for myself sometimes, and I'm hard on myself. Um, but I think, like, if I can say, I've said it before, and it's like, am I just saying that? But I genuinely do think I forgive them for what happened to me, because I have a lot of, you know, I've had a lot of dark, intrusive thoughts in my mind of, you know, suicide, of, you know, obsessive thoughts around, you know, stuff that I've had to deal with. And it's like, these, not saying, you know, condoning what they've done, but these people have got to live with being monsters,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And when I started to kind of explore Hinduism, yoga, to realize that, you know, they're that no, I found peace in believing that we have our next life. You know, I'm here
yeah,
to clear my karma for this life. So they're stuck in those, like, you know, they've got to keep repeating this cycle. And
uh,
there's a lot of philosophy, you know, stuff that I'm researching into that I found peace with. Maybe it's just, you know, I said to you, like what I said to you as well, it's like, um healing's not linear. You know, we might unpick something that we need to deal with, and something will come up in a few months, then we might
yeah,
not forgive everything. And just having that compassion and that patience, and just feeling into what feels there. Like, I was in such a high place a couple of months ago, and I'm you know, I'm having this experience, this low vibe experience of drinking again, of, you know, exploring and seeing what that is, what the lessons are in that, you know, but
yeah,
also forgiving myself. One thing I like, I guess I found a lot of healing through my, like, spiritual work. Like, I became a healer myself. I'm a yoga teacher now. But to find that love and compassion, you know, just keep opening my heart to the universe, to other people, to,
yeah.
yeah, that was cool. But one thing I am really excited about and looking forward to is next week I'm doing ayahuasca. So I'm excited to go back and see, because it can disconnect like energetic contracts with people,
Okay.
or karma and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see if I have held on to that. You know, so I guess everybody we meet and everything that happens to us in life leaves an imprint. So maybe there is, well, I'm sure there is still lots of healing to go on there, and, you know, that I'm holding on to, or the anger. Then, you know, the anger must come from it obviously comes from there, and
Yeah.
like those formative years, and yeah,
Yeah, I've heard good
interesting.
things about it. A good friend of mine said that he's also a survivor. He said that he's done it, and it changed his life. Basically, the experience changed his life. So I'm sure it'd be really yeah, interesting experience for you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. So I heard you say energy healer just a minute ago, and on your live with um survivors trauma healing. I can't remember her name now.
Yeah.
But on the live you did sharing your story. So energy healer. What does that mean? What does that include for people who aren't aware of that?
Cool. So when I got to, I guess I felt, I've always felt energy. I've always felt, you know, like something behind me or something over my shoulder, or run through like graveyards and that kind of stuff. And I was so scared of it, you know.
Yeah.
But then I remember going for a breakup, and my friend gave me some energy healing and did a cord cutting ceremony for me. I was on Brighton Beach. I was just sobbing. I was like, what is this?
Really?
That was the first time I experienced it. Yeah. Then when I got to Spain, I had this like entity following me around for a few days. And it was terrifying. I couldn't sleep. I'd have to have my back against the wall all the time. Like, I was on my own in like this big villa. Um, so I went to a workshop of like connecting with your angels. And I've, you know, my mum's always had angels around, and just always spoke
Yeah.
about angels. And, you know, I've always kind like, well, my family always finds feathers at, like, for funerals and stuff. So
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah.
little things.
My mum's like that. She speaks that she has angels, and yeah,
Um,
she's when we see a feather, she's like, "Oh, that's my dad," or that's your grand, you know.
yeah.
She, yeah, yeah. So
Like,
yeah,
I'm not,
so
you know, we all have our own path to pursue, but you should really look at, if you're like, if, you know, if that's part of your, if you've got a, we all have our angels, but if your angels are communicating with your family, it means you've got a really strong, like, angelic connection there. So it's beautiful.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I always say this, don't confuse angels with Hollywood movies or the Bible and stuff. There's something very, it's an energy, it's a level of energy that we can all connect, and it's could be something different to you than it is to me. It could be a sound, a sensation, you know. It's, you take away that picture of these big winged angelic figures, you know, that's not
Yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
everybody's. But anyway, so I went to this angelic workshop, and it was nice. And I remember talking to a woman, and she deals with spirit, and I was like, oh, I don't deal with spirit, blah blah blah. That's, you know, it scares me. But anyway, the woman who owns the center called me back, and she said, can I have a chat with you? And I was like, yeah. And she said, can you come into the center? And I was like, okay. So I went in. She was like, look, I was speaking to one of the women, and she was like, we sense that you have, you know, something with you. And I was like, it's here, isn't it? And I was like, and I just cried, and it was just weird, you know. I was like, I've never experienced anything like that. Didn't want to experience that. Like, go away and just do it to somebody else, you know. It's terrifying. um but anyway, her and one, they're kind of two of my most beautiful, they're Welsh, these two beautiful Welsh ladies. They did like an energy cleansing on me. So it was
Okay.
literally, I wish I could record it. It was like an exorcism. It was like,
Oh
you know,
wow.
you wouldn't believe it, but it was like there was voices, there was
Oh my God.
shaking. Like, I would never believe, if someone else would be like, you're having a laugh, but honestly, like, it was the most surreal experience. And I just couldn't not believe after that in something. You know, so yeah, that was the kind of starts, and I realized I want to start giving that back to people. So I did like attunement in angelic Reiki, so angelic healing, and then I did just like a normal like a Reiki attunement for grounding and protection. So
Yeah.
yeah, now I have clients myself that the more more I'm exploring the world and life and the universe anywhere, I feel like we all have connection into source, into this energy, you know. But it's finding your connection, and when you're doing these healings, like, it's just me facilitating a channel for people to connect in, and, you know, feel and tap into your source, your universe, this healing light and stuff you have. So yeah, so
Yeah.
that's energy healing.
Yeah, wow. One of the things, like, for me is I'm not like religious or anything like that. But I do get what you mean by these energy type things. Like, obviously I haven't looked into much of it, like such as you have. But a part of my story is that I was near suicide, and at the last minute, my girlfriend called me. But I always told my girlfriend never call me first, and she'd never called me first ever, because if my abuser saw that she'd called me, then I'd be in big shit, really. And so that was the first time she ever called me first, just as I was slitting my wrist to end my life. And like, I was like, what are the chances of that? Like, it just doesn't
Yeah,
happen. And like, and I to this day, like, I feel like someone was there with me. I don't know who it was. I don't know what it was. I can't explain it. It wasn't like a physical presence or some creepy thing off a film where there's like, you know, where they're like, oh,
yeah,
looking around. Like, it was just comforting. It was a comfort, like, sort of all around me feeling. And it allowed me to just blurt out my story, like, to my girlfriend on the phone. And that was the first time I ever spoke up. And like, just that situation to me just makes me want to look into, you know, something. There must be something more.
yeah, yeah. And
So
you know, when you're ready, like, things will appear to you. And, you know, even I can sit back and think of like times where I knew, you know, an angel, or this something was with me, God, whatever you want it to be, you know, was with me, guiding me, protecting me. There's many
yeah,
times I could have been, you know, killed or fallen off of buildings, or killed, exactly, you know, went too far with, you know, self-harming and stuff like that. And I think, you know, I don't know, but there's a reason they kept you, you know, that helped you, because you're here helping us and guiding us, and, you know, you have your message to share with the world. And
yeah,
sometimes it's hard to stomach, I don't know, but we have to go through what we go through to, you know, shine our light and help other people. And it's a big cross to bear sometimes, when you think, God, I'd rather have not gone through that. But I'm some things you've said today are kind of like, gosh, yeah, I've still got some, journaling or healing or stuff to go through with that. But also, I wouldn't necessarily change what I went through. I prefer it
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
happen, but I'm really proud of who I am today. And, no matter what we go through, what we went through, we're still, you know, smiling, loving, caring, compassionate. And that's like a hero, I think
yeah,
that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I mean, like I always say this, I say the reason why I feel like I'm on this sort of mission, not to sound like cliche cringe or anything like that, but like this journey, and I feel like this is meant for me because what else can I get out of it? What? So I think that the police officers and people like that said to me was, "Oh, you can move on now. You can move on," and that was always something that hurt me a little bit inside when she said that. It's like, what? Move on to what? This is all I've ever known. It was my
Yeah,
whole childhood. It went through my whole childhood. So what does move on mean? Because that was my life before. And it was kind of like, I can't just take that waste of time. I can't just accept that 8 years of my life was just wasted. In fact, more,
yeah,
probably like 10, 12 years of my life was wasted. So it's like, yeah, it was sort of, I want to speak up. I want to help people. I want to make value and positivity out of this negative situation because I just
yeah,
can't live with, it's the thing that keeps me going. I can't live with the fact that I lost my whole childhood to that. That's just not something I could live with. And I think if I try to do that, if I try to just, chuck it out and move on, it wouldn't have gone well.
yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I hear. It's really. I always think this, like, yeah, I'm really proud of what I've achieved in my life and how I always just keep going forward and stuff. But there's also people I know. It's not. It might sound wrong. I'm not trying to compare because that's another thing. Like, we should never, ever, ever compare our trauma, our abuse. What you went through is completely different to what I went
Yeah, of
through.
course.
My that's one thing I just really want people to hear is, like, no matter what you go through, that's an abuse, that's a trauma. You don't
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
justify it, you don't have to compare it to my story, to your story, to anyone else's story. If it was more than you could handle as a child, and if you didn't feel safe, that's a trauma and that's abuse.
yeah, yeah, you're
And
right.
just make sure that you're that's valid.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
don't hear you or see you like I see you and I hear you, and um but I guess something that there's so much help out there for people that have been abused, have been through these tough things, and then they have taken. Okay, I'm not saying they've made choices or they've gone on to. I'm not trying to say, like, there's people I guess I hold resentment towards that. Is that people that go on to become addicts and
yeah,
have it's hard because I have compassion for them too, but just because we're coping necessarily more, people think we're obviously coping, or we're doing things with our life that we don't have that daily struggle. We don't have
yeah,
that
yeah,
we don't hold on to that hurt and that abuse. And I question myself every day: am I good enough? I talk to myself badly. I talk to oh wow, I can just kill myself. Like, these things are not
yeah, yeah,
okay for me to be feeling still today at 33 years of age, but I've learned to deal with that. And I'm healing, and I'm so proud of that. But just because I'm not, I am coping. I remember when I was in London, and I'd been in mental hospital once, and then I was meant to give up work and go into hospital for 3 years.
mm,
And I was going to get a pension and all this stuff, and they said, look, you're presenting too well. Like, they're not.
yeah, yeah,
And I was like, what do you mean I'm presenting too well? And they was like, well, like, you look really well, you have a job, you're holding the job down, like, they won't accept you onto the scheme and all this stuff. And I was like, so I had to dumb myself down. Like, I was too like damaged, I guess, to live in society. I'd try and work, and I'd go off sick every 6 months, or get depressed, or self-harm, or drink, or all
yeah.
this stuff. But then I wasn't crazy enough to go into hospital or to get help. I was like,
Yeah,
so where do I
that's
fit in
terrible.
society?
Yeah,
People that have survived. I'm not saying we're any different, or we deserve anything more than people that aren't coping with things as well. But just to acknowledge that, we went through that too. And
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
I can
It doesn't
completely
take away
relate to
what
that.
happened.
Yeah, like I've been like through stages where I'm like, why is no one asking me how I'm doing or anything? Like while doing all the stuff I'm doing now, like podcasting and stuff, like because people just assume that because you're doing this, it's they must be fine, they must be doing okay. When I'm just mirroring what you said completely. Yeah, this is the part of the podcast that I do with every guest, and it's called "What's in Your Bio," and that's on Instagram. And so I just ask a question on one of the things in your bio, and just for you to sort of explain and go into that. So I saw 200-hour. I don't know how to say this. Okay, hatha yogi, and I saw 200-hour, and I think anything like 200-hour in front of anything, any action is like impressive. Like you said, like 200-hour headstand. I guess that'd be like things. So yeah,
Yeah.
what's that about?
That's my yoga teacher training. So when you do your kind of basic yoga teacher training, you do 200 hours. But
Okay,
usually,
yeah.
yeah, usually you do it residential over a month. But I did mine last year through lockdown, so I did it online,
Yeah.
like 15 hours a week.
Oh wow,
So
yeah. So you're fully like certified. Yeah, so it means you're just fully certified yoga teacher.
yeah, it's like that's like the minimum really to be able to be a yoga teacher.
Okay.
But yeah, it's also, do you know what? Like, it's so cliche when people are like, "Oh, I found myself through yoga," and it's like, don't like ever don't worry about like the postures and the asanas. We call them asanas, like the postures and standing on one leg and touching, all that kind of touching your toes, or that. Don't worry about that. Like, that's the tiniest part of yoga. So you're not, I'm not
Yeah.
standing on, I'm not doing a headstand for 2 hours or try it. Like, my yoga practice is shocking physically, but it's the self-inquiry, the kind of study of the scriptures, and you realize this is over 5,000 years old,
Yeah.
and yoga's and it just look into more. If I can give some like people advice around yoga, is don't even look at the postures. So much about the mindfulness, the meditation. That, to me, the goal of yoga is to reach samadhi, which is kind of bliss state.
Mm-hmm.
So we do the postures and the breathing exercises just to be able to sit longer in meditation and to calm our mind. But to go through yoga training was a lot of resistance. I didn't
Yeah.
think, it was like a crash course in kind of psychology, but also my devotion back to my God or universe. Before I'd see God as religion, whereas now I see God as the light within me, the light within you, the light within the universe. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
yoga
So
is,
you know
the
what I
bottom line is
pictured?
yoga's more.
I pictured you like sat on a mountain for 200 hours, like meditating in a stance or something,
Imagine.
like this. But yes, that it's great that that you do that, and I've heard so much good stuff about yoga and trauma healing and stuff like that. So yeah, that's great. Okay, so final question. I'm sure you want to get going, and I'm sweating in here in this boiling studio. So the final question. I'm a massive like music fan, and I have like music has played a huge role in my healing. So I'm gonna ask you if you have a song or an artist or an album. It can be one of those three. That has helped you along your journey.
Yeah, I guess. My song, there's three songs, I'll tell you, but they're always like my pick me up songs, and one of them followed me, called Imani, Slow Down.
Okay.
That followed me around India. Really weird. There's no reason that song should be played in certain places, and it just kept coming on. So it's like, slow down, take your time, it will be all right. And it's just whenever I get too like anxious or too worried or too obsessed, it's just like, stop, just feel the emotion, allow it to pass through. The other one is Codaline, High Hopes.
Okay.
So that's kind of a guy in the music video, kind of guy sat in a car about to kill himself.
Wow.
And then yeah, so that there's some quite powerful lyrics in that. And then Andrew Day, Rise Up. I don't know, that's just like my little anthem of getting myself
Oh
out of
yeah.
bed. And I love
Yeah.
that one. So
Amazing.
always
Yeah.
all always like, you know, quite uplifting songs. And yeah, like music's so powerful, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Also more so, sorry to keep going on, but like what I've learned more so now is a lot of mantras and kind of, you know, yogic music as well. Like mantra repetition helps with calming and has like vibrations and things like this. So
Yeah.
there's a guy that I love called Sam Garrett, and
Okay.
he's kind of like sings a lot of devotion music to gurus and God and universe and stuff. So that he's a disciple of Muji. Muji's like a really amazing guru in from the UK. That's kind of, he found I don't really know what he found, but he become a guru. You know, whether it was Hinduism or yoga, I guess, or devotion to his God or our God or whatever. But yeah, like devotion music's really important as well.
Yeah. Great, amazing. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and being so vulnerable with everyone. As you know, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you, like, your story is so valuable. Like every survivor's story is so valuable, and I encourage all survivors to, if you feel comfortable, to share your story, because it comes with so many benefits. So yeah, again, thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.